Evening, gents. We are going to embark on a fun little project, I hope, and I'm going to bring you along. We have an M1917 or thereafter, you know, World War I on into World War II era steel helmet, borrowed from the British, you know, their Brodie helmets. And I want it for a specific purpose, other than, obviously, it's just cool, right? I'm not sure the direction we're going to go yet. I've been kind of playing around, as you can see in the bottom there. And we're going to see, I kind of have definite ideas of what I want to do with it, what I want it to look like. But we're going to see what we can come up with. Let's take a look. So, with a reasonable amount of work and effort, if I can make it look somewhat decent like I have here, I don't mind surface rust. As far as good solid rusty colored metal, I want obviously as much pitting or you know, the loose junk and powdery stuff and on we go. You know, as much paint as we can uncover and as much rust as we can remove, the better. And what we find underneath really determines how I'm going to proceed here. I have no idea. I need to actually look up online. I've done it in the past, but it's been so long ago I've kind of forgotten about how to date these things. I know if we can find uncover any stampings, that would help. And I think also going from roundish to square clips here, like we have square ones, that can also narrow down the date on this thing. So before this video ends, I will look that back up. But interestingly, and we'll get a better idea of this when we do the top side, but there's a lot of white paint on here, so I'm guessing at one point this may have been air warden type helmet, possibly painted white on the home front here, but just kind of difficult to say. I'm going to get the bottom and then we'll do the top side together. Well, honestly, if the top turns out as well as the bottom, which I really doubt it will, I'll be very pleased. We had a little bit of rust I had to get in there. A little bit of rust. We had a lot of rust, but a lot of really rough junk down in there, so I got in there with the drill and the wire brush on there. Just down in here. My main thing was I did not want to start getting shiny, bare, raw steel. We may, I don't know if it's just glossy or we are getting some, yeah, I think it's just glossy. For my purposes here, I did not want to do that. And as much as this original stuff I can keep, I will. I may end up clear coating this just so it does not get any worse. But having said that, now we turn our attention to this. I don't think there's going to be much left, but maybe I'll be surprised. What I'm using, simply spray away glass cleaner, steel wool, you know, mixing it up with the Scotch-Brite, wiping it off, rinsing and repeating. Doing this with like a penetrating oil, WD-40, or any other various type you want to use would be very helpful in breaking that rust down and doing that. But I really didn't want to saturate this stuff with oil and have that mess. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, so far there's basically nothing left. Well, that tells the story. Man, that's too bad. Kind of knew it going in. It is time for us to make a huge mess here, so that'll be fun. I hope I have enough camouflage paint. If not, I may have to, hopefully we can get the first coat, if not a second one on here. Just using spray paint, and we're going to put sand texture on it as the World War ones would have originally had, the American ones. And I believe cork came about in World War II on those helmets. Now for those purists out there, I hope what I have in mind to do with this is gonna work, right? We got all the nasty loose dirt and chalky rust and everything off of there. So as long as this sticks to this type of rust, you know, then it'll be fine. We have all the original stuff going on under there. So like I say, for the purists out there who get all bent out of shape if you even accidentally burp in the direction of something original, you know, technically we're preserving it under there. And be honest, there's just not much of it left. Now the bottom side, when all said and done, I will clear coat that and we will keep that as it is. So, Krylon, camouflage olive, I want the rust color underneath, I want the original paint underneath, I want the dents underneath, but I do want my can to work. Oh, now is not the time. Okay, let's wet it down again. I don't have the paint for this kind of behavior. May have to do a couple of those. What the hey, let's just build it up again. Alright, I've given my second sanding a little bit of time to dry out here. I think we're looking pretty good. I don't really know firsthand what it's supposed to look like, to be honest with you. So, I am going to quickly use what's left of my paint for now. And I'm guessing I'm going to need a whole lot more of this. Oh, that lazy Susan sounds like it appreciates this. I'm sure it would have been mixed together in a can originally. And so the paint would have looked much thicker over the sand. So I think we have some building up to do here. So unless you're new here, you know by now that when I'm doing a project, if I have something that we can get by with, make it look good, obviously, we roll with what we've got. We use with what we got, This whole time thinking about this project, I knew I had a partial can of the camo green paint left over from the 1918 Boys machine gun. Homemade machine gun. If you haven't seen it, go look for it on my channel. Turned out pretty good, and we will be back to it, I guarantee. Anyway, I knew I had the paint, and so this whole time I was like, I've got what I need. I should have looked for, I don't know if a guy could find a pint of camo green in a can, and mixed that with sand and brushed it on, and that would have been a whole lot better. But I am pleased with how well what we've done so far has stuck, It's just a little bit sharp and rough for a guy's liking, which the thick paint would have taken care of. So I'm just going over this, what is this, 80 grit? I don't know, I had it in my box of cast off sandpapers. Just going over that. I've actually got to get to town and get more paint. So in the meantime, that will do nicely. Let's see if we can showcase it. So there's unsanded, and there's, I know that microphone's casting a shadow, but it just knocks down the sharpness. Come on, guy. I bet that's nice right in the microphone. Alright, I brought it to work with me so we can babysit it here. I guess I already had it here when I was sanding on it, but I really like how that knocked all that sand down, the sharpness of it. So we're going to hit it with some army green and see how this looks. We're just gonna fog it on there, Okay, I'm going to tell you where we stand. I have been playing around. I've shown you quite a bit of it, but not all of it. I've just, like I say, been playing around. I've been testing colors, and I'm just not getting out of the can what I'm really going for here. So I put on that Krylon camo green. That was probably the closest out of the can green that I liked, but it was much darker than I wanted, really. Basically what I'm finding is everything out of the can, it's too green, I think is what's going on. Then I did that flat army green that I found at Ace in Rust-Oleum. That was very light and very green. I did not like it. It looked more like a plastic army helmet, I sprayed the clear satin over it. That helped with the depth. It made it look a little better, but it was still way too bright of a green. This morning I found the satin Rust-Oleum spruce green. I just tested it a little bit on a spot. It is slightly better, but still not what I want. I was looking through my paints in here. I found Rust-Oleum camouflage brown, but it didn't work. It's plugged up in the straw inside the can, so that didn't work. Then I found this satin espresso. This is what we painted 48 Chevy speedometer or gauges with for part of them. Again, satin. So what I did, I put her down here. What I'm trying to achieve here is something pleasing to my eye. It may not be exactly yours, but this is my project. And a huge part of my opinion, my eye, what I'm looking for, is based on the original green that we have in there. And I think we're getting close enough to where I'm happy with it. Basically what I did to achieve how it looks right now, I took the brown, the espresso brown, and I stood back, maybe about here, and I did not give it a full coat, but I walked around and just spritzed. You know? Got a little brown in it. Well, just like that. And then immediately I came back with the spruce green, and I did the same thing to taste. You know, salt to taste, spray to sight, I guess. Till we ended up with kind of almost this bronzy, you can see we got the browns and the greens going on there, but it almost ends up this bronzy green color that is much closer to what I want. And that's where we're going to leave it. Okay, I really have something I want to do before I get too carried away with making it look old again, which it kind of does already, but just taking my wire wheel here on the bench grinder and chipping down to that that dark rust color underneath that we left. So I'll do, if a guy was right-handed, that would probably get pretty beat up. I may want to take a bunch off the very top from setting it down or it falling all the time. We have a couple of small dents. Here's one, and there's one up here. I think it's right there. And then there's also some slick spots where the sand didn't stick too well. Overall, I'm actually quite pleased with how the texture turned out. I was quite surprised. May even want to scuff off the tops of the rivets, like they would get kind of worn down pretty quick also. But there is something else before I get too carried away with making this thing look old. There is one more thing I want to do. But for right now, I'm just going to play around a little and see what we can come up with. In doing research on just what I wanted to do with this helmet, I came across a post a guy had put, well, in his personal collection, he had an original helmet, and had posted photos about it. Also, he had either an image, a scan, or the actual document, orders coming down from command for that particular division or whatever to paint their insignia on their helmet. And of course, a lot of guys would do that, just in the field on their own, probably. You find when you look at images of these helmets, ones for sale, sometimes they're often very elaborately decorated. And, I guess it's up to you to decide, is that genuine, or has that been, I guess like this, has that been faked, so on and so forth. And those orders that he was showing told the division, or whatever entity it was, to paint a red star on their helmets. I would assume that was their patch insignia. And on his original helmet, you could see this one particular soldier that used his helmet had taken maybe a pocket knife, maybe a bayonet, who knows, and removed the texture, scraped it down to the bare steel, and then painted that red star in there. That is what I want to do. However, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Being from Kansas, I am going to do the shoulder patch of the Fighting First, the big red one. Now that was originally organized, I believe, in June of 1917. It was constituted in May and organized in June in New York, and then they were deployed to Europe. And it was not until 1955, following their return home from Germany, that Fort Riley, Kansas was made home to the Big Red One. But it has been home. Fort Riley has been home to the Fighting First, nearby town of Junction City, ever since to this day. So it was kind of my idea this entire time, even with the 3D printed helmets that we were trying to do stuff with, that I would have their logo. So we're just going to quickly sketch this out. It would not have been anything perfect, this field art kind of stuff. I don't know if that's looking quite centered. Something like that. Looks like I need to raise the one up a little bit. Anyway, I'm going to draw this out till I like it. Play with it till I like it, and then we will... I don't know why I'm doing the one now. I'm going to remove it, just like that other guy did. So before I go any further, I'm just going to take an old pocket knife. See if we can remove this. I chose this as the front. I really like this beat up edge. Looks like our guy took a swan dive into the trench. Maybe rung his bell a little bit, you know. Alright, I'm going to turn Cary Grant back on, North by Northwest, and continue to chip away at this. Should have done more dry brushing. See if I can wipe some of this off. I don't want it looking brand new here. I'm gonna mix a little of this brown with the red, because it is bright red. Something like that. Not too bad, not too bad. Get a bunch of this off of here. Let's see what that looks like when it's dry. I think it's looking pretty good. Well, those airbrush acrylics, they dry pretty darn fast. I went back with the brown and just darkened up a little bit around the edges. I don't want to overdo it. I'm really digging the fact I'm seeing that green and white old paint, you know, beneath there. Looking pretty cool. I'm going to come back and do just a very, very minute amount of scuffing and scraping and so on and so forth. I think here where it's obvious it's been hit, I want to remove some stuff there. You know, just play around with some steel wool, a scuff pad, not get too out of hand. I could even remove some of this in here if I felt like it. Then we're going to move on to the liner, and that'll be it. Hmm. Well, unfortunately, the neat little kind of bronzed copper rivet that they sent in the kit was either too small a diameter, too short, or both, to go all the way through and be able to form a head without going back through the hole, unless this hole has been enlarged in years past. So in order to continue on today, I have taken a old slot head machine screw and I've flattened out the head so it looks the same as what we had, and then when I'm done here I'll hit it with some gun bluing and it'll look blackened and it'll look good enough. So I'm going to try that again at the vise, see if we can get this connected. None of the rivets are long enough in this set. I don't know. What's a guy to do? Try again with some I had. It might be the longest one I got there in copper. I've got some steel ones and I've got some aluminum ones. Looking more hopeful. Alright guys, there we go. Took pretty much a rusted out, derelict, original old helmet and made it our own. You gotta have a rakish angle, you know. Just had fun with it. Let me know what you think. I think it looks pretty good. Looks old. Functional. Now it'll just sit around. But anyway, we got the project done. Tell me what you think. And yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Might just have to wear that to church on Sunday. Probably not. Anyway, thanks for joining me. God bless you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.